So this is a poem I wrote when I was on the coast. It was so beautiful. We saw 3 baby bald eagles and just lots of fabulous wildlife. We were not too far from the center, which was so lovely. And we were visiting with a friend who was a new friend who knew people from the center. She was a therapist in Edisto in that area. So that was fun to be at a house where she knew lots of Baba lovers. Okay, so I'll just jump in. It does not have a title. There is a joy around us, hovering just beyond the spiral of the ear, like the rustling of wings on a branch outside our view. You are for me this presence, like the scent on our hands long after we have visited with a rose.
No.
Sorry.
Put yourself on mute, dear. You are both the doorway and the journey itself. And I have reason to believe that underneath your skin is so much love that a body can almost not bear to hold it. The way light must spill out of a cup. The way God finally gets hold of us and pours himself more and more to the quiet spaces of our lives, where the holy rustling feathers can be heard. Now, can I read you version 2 and you all can vote? Once I was at the center and I was writing a poem about forgiveness, and I wrote it the way I wanted it to be, and I thought, that's too hard to understand, so I wrote version 2. And then Jeff said, hey, are you writing some poetry? Bring it to lunch and read it to everybody. So I had this little audience of people, and it was so interesting because everyone liked version 1 by far better than version 2, and it was a real lesson for me. And I'm sharing this because I know that there's some people here that write poetry. It was a lesson for me to never underestimate the intelligence of your audience, which is something I actually learned from Oprah Winfrey. And I think it's one of the reasons she was able to keep her show at such a high level when so many people were, talking about their ex-boyfriend and how he stole their credit card. So this is version 2, which was the original version. And the line that I've changed is about the rose. So that's the line I'd love your feedback about. There is a joy around us, hovering just beyond the spiral of the ear, like the rustling of wings on a branch outside our view. You are for me this presence, like the scent on our hands long after we have knelt with a rose. You are both the doorway and the journey itself. And I have reason to believe that underneath your skin is so much love that a body can almost not bear to hold it. The way light must spill out of a cup. The way God finally gets hold of us and pours himself more and more into the quiet spaces of our lives, where the holy rustling feathers can be heard. So the first version said, like the scent on our hands long after we have visited with a rose. And the second version said, like a scent on our hands long after we have knelt with a rose, Knelt. I prefer knelt, but I was afraid that was too difficult to understand.
I like it.
No, I love the line.
Okay, oh, see, there it is again. Diana?
There's a Baba, famous male Baba singer, and he always goes on stage as if no one knows anything. And I got so annoyed with him, this is many, many years ago, that I finally said to him, I always go on stage and know that everyone knows everything. And he got so furious. He didn't speak to me for a very long time. Whenever I'd show up at things. But I think it was just a huge healthy juxtaposition thing to say, because that's why we got on with the Mandali so well. They always approached you like you knew everything. And that not only that, you were blood related to them, that I think getting And I know how when I write something, if someone criticizes it, I go to hell and back because it's so intimate. But you're right, it's great to have input. It's great to see that it could have been expressed better and focused on. It's a beautiful line.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm so glad that I had a group of people to share that with and get some feedback. Thank you for being a good audience. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a big deal for me to understand that that if you believe your audience can go somewhere with you, then you allow yourself as the writer to go there. Mm-hmm. And that it makes the whole experience much more rich and much deeper and much more subtle, I think. And, you know, when we're talking about poetry, if you don't have some subtlety in poetry, you may as well go write a novel or something. You know, it's just because, especially this type of poetry, it really has to have that subtlety to it, I think, to walk near the word mystery or to walk near the word divine. Yeah, thank you for that. And anyone else have any comments?
Well, I'll vote for Nelt.
Oh, good. Yeah, good. Thank you. I appreciate that. And
I was going to say, I like for me, it was an image of the scent on the hands, because flowers and herbs in particular release scent on your hand. And if you go into a garden, one way to know the plants is to crush them in your hands or rub your hands through them. And it's part of the whole experience. So for me, I like that image.
The word visited or the word knelt? Because those are the two words that got changed.
You said visited, but didn't you have the word scent?
So yeah, I'll read that one line again. Version 1 was like the scent on our hands long after we have visited with a rose. And then version 2 was like the scent on our hands long after we have knelt with a rose.
Oh, I guess I don't have a strong feeling one way or another. I'm just still stuck with the scent on the hands.
Yeah.
From the rose. I mean, that does it for me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Yeah. It was actually a real experience I had. I had put rose lotion on my hands to massage someone's neck that was in pain. And I was lying in bed the next morning, my hands were close to my face and I just caught a whiff of that rose. And it was just so incredible. You know, it was like an intoxicating moment. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm late joining.
Hey, Elaine.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
Got no picture again.
Oh.
Yeah, we know what you look like, so we're good. We can visualize you.
It's really me. It's real me.
Just came up. Oh, sorry about this. But what to do about now we know you're visiting, you see, by changing that word, now the visit is taken out of the line.
I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you turn your volume up and can you say that again?
I don't know how to turn the volume up that you can hear it better. Do you know how I can?
Now I can hear you better. Somehow you're speaking more loudly.
I know when I get this close, though, you've got to put up with the whole thing. I'm sorry.
We like the whole thing.
So one thing that occurs to me is how then to transmit, like without a chord or the mystery of a chord, the visit, if you take the visiting out.
Well, yes, that was my concern. And I was, in fact, you know, like for me, when I visit with a rose in a garden, I'm usually in some kind of kneeling position. I'm leaning over, or sometimes I'm actually kneeling. And so I guess y'all know this, that when you look at like electromagnetic frequencies that can measure the life force of things, on the plant spectrum, canned food is over here, and then there's frozen food is one level up, and then fresh food is here, and then herbs and that kind of thing are here, and then off the charts, literally off the charts, are roses.
Really?
Their vibration is so high that they're in a category of their own when you measure the frequency of roses. Hence, through centuries and cultures, roses are thought to represent love. So that's why I thought maybe the word knelt might translate as I was having a moment with a rose. And usually when you have moments with flowers, you're touching them and you're smelling them, because that's what we do with flowers, like you said, Diana. And so I was hoping that translated that when I knelt with a rose, I was engaged with it on some level. So.
Yeah, and maybe visit takes away the oneness of that image.
To me, the word felt a little too every day.
Right.
Yeah. But thank you for bringing that up. Those are good things to look at. Good. My brain is not working very well, but good thoughts to have about words. Words are what poems are made out of. So this is the other question. Oh yeah, sure.
Ask a question?
Absolutely.
I don't really write poetry. I write a few stuff, but you seem you asked a comment that made you were taking into consideration and what the reader wanted to hear. And so many times I hear artists who actually don't write for anybody but themselves, and whomever picks it up and interprets it, go for it.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I'm glad you brought that up, because when I started to write poetry, which Baba asked me to do actually, I felt that I had done a lot of writing in college and high school. I had written a lot of essays and I had written journalistic pieces. And what I concluded as a writer was that it was my job to be clear. And that if I was not clear in my writing, I was failing as a writer. And so it was one of my goals to clearly express feeling and nuance and images and whatever it was I was expressing. So when I started to write poetry, I reflected on the fact that I think most of us, and I might be speaking out of turn, but I feel like most of us are slightly put off or intimidated by poetry, because there is so much poetry out there that you cannot understand what it's talking about. And, I am smarter than a grapefruit, but I read poetry that I'm just like, I have no idea what that person said. Like, I have literally no idea what that point meant. And so what I have discovered in facilitating other—
Did you say you're smarter than a grapefruit?
I did say that. Isn't that a fun phrase? You're welcome to borrow it.
You did say that, right?
My brother-in-law used to say that to me. Tracy, you're smarter than a grapefruit, when he wanted me to up my game, But what I noticed when I started writing poetry is that poetry is so tricky, because you're really trying to say something that bypasses the mind and goes straight into feeling or the heart. That's why Baba loved poetry so much. That's why I think so many spiritual teachers read poetry as a way of, that's why Christ spoke in parable. Be ye as little children. He didn't say, if you could be more childlike, that would be really helpful to you. No, he just said, be ye as little children. You totally get the feeling of that. And the innocence of that, the purity of that, the spontaneity of that. And so I guess when I started writing poetry, I felt that it was a cop-out on my part to write poetry that people could not understand. And so it's something that I take, to heart when I write. Is this understandable? And I know that not everybody can understand my poetry or anybody else's poetry, because some people just cannot understand poetry. And for those people, I have nothing to say. I mean, I don't know how to help them. But, for the majority of people who can understand poetry, I try to let the words meet them where they are.
That's quite a, setting a standard. I mean, not a standard's not the right word, but that's really setting a mark for yourself that's high.
A bar.
Yeah, setting the bar high. How do you go about reaching them at their level? You know.
I do exactly what we just did.
Uh-huh.
I read my poems to a friend or to several friends or to a group of people, and I say, is there some part of that that wasn't clear? I read it out loud to myself, and I immediately can hear the nuance of the words and the rhythm of the way the words are falling out of my mouth. And I immediately, usually just hearing it out loud with one person in the room, I immediately know if it works or not, or if it was successful or not. And I've told this story before, but when Daniel Ladinsky was writing The Gift, he so figured out the importance of hearing poetry out loud in the presence of another person as a marker for the ears of the poet to know if it's successful, if it communicates well, if it's got rhythm, if it's got, anything. That he finally just wore his friends' ears out so badly that he had to resort to calling people up and leaving poems on their voicemail.
Oh,
That's a great story.
I know, right? And believe me, I'm reaching that point in my life where I may have to start
Oh my God.
leaving poems on people's voicemails because there's only so many people you can share poems with and expect to get a response.
Oh, I'm looking forward to getting one.
Yes, I'll keep you on the list.
Thank you.
I used to leave messages to myself on the phone, and there was something called Scribble or something. I forget what it was. This is before Facebook and such things. So I would leave messages to myself, if it had come to me. And when I was writing Grin and Gulp, my poetry book, one day I was driving on a bridge and just it all came to me, glancing at this dreadful rusty ship with oil in it, and oil seemingly suddenly the whole world turned into oil, and so I just grabbed my phone and dialed myself and left it to myself on my answering machine. And when you listen to yourself like that, then you can, and then I just keyed it all in and worked on it. But yeah, just others scrutinizing ourselves from the original spontaneous thought. Because in music we have to clean everything up because it has to fit into the tune and the this and that. Poetry is not so simple that it can have a moody G or a moody D minor under it. You've
Right.
really got to somehow get all that
Right.
with words.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people think poetry is easy to write, but I think anyone who's really tried to write poetry consistently can tell you it is the most difficult thing that there is to write. And I think, in the world of writers, professional writers, they all say poetry is the hallmark of writing because you have so few words to express what you have to say,
True.
Right. You have to get right to the point. You can't spend a lot of time getting there.
With the feeling included.
Right. With the feeling included. Thomas Jefferson said simplicity implies greatness. And I always feel like that really describes poetry very well. And you can tell, I don't know about any of you, but after having written poetry for several years now, I would say I can normally tell when a poem comes out of a person's pen like that. They just literally put pen to paper and it just comes out. Kind of like the way Baba wrote his Huma poems. We all know that those were inspired. I mean, you can feel how inspired those poems were. He did not labor over those poems. You can just feel that he didn't labor over them. And I had several poems, literally, I put pen to paper, bam, they just came out, done. And they're so much better than the poems that I labor over. So much better.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, here's one more if you want to hear it, and then we'll move on to The Master. I have one eye here, one eye there. That's how it is for those of us who sit at the threshold, day and night, intently questioning the stars. can't read my own handwriting. This dialogue with what is real is a thread that weaves us together. You may know what I'm talking about. If not, make a petition and prepare for the door to be opened. It is we who do not reach for the handle, not the other way around. Angels stand at the gate ready for our request. It is what they have been waiting for all along. I may have messed that poem up a little bit.
When did you write that?
The day before I got sick.
Before.
What?
Before.
Before.
There's before and after, right?
Just before I got sick.
It's another new before, right?
Yes, it is another new before. So one day I had a revelation that angels are literally waiting for us to ask them for help, similarly to the way Baba is waiting for us to ask him for help.
Yep.
So I'm just going to launch into some Rumi. And if anybody wants to read something, please, put it in the sidebar here and we'll make space for you. And if you want to discuss any of the poems, we'll have a moment of quiet after each poem so that if anyone wants to make comments or ask questions or do a little deciphering of what was meant, we can do that because Rumi sometimes can be a little bit tricky to understand. And, Rumi did not write poetry until Shams was murdered or harmed. We don't know which one of those two things happened. And it was out of his grief that he began writing, and he did not write anything down. He spoke them out spontaneously, and they were written down by the people around him. So this one is called We Cannot Decide. There has never been a beauty like yours. Your face, your eyes, your presence. We cannot decide which we love most, your gracefulness or your generosity. I come with many knots in my heart, like the magician's rope. You undid them all at once. I see now the splendor of the student and that of the teacher's art. Love and this body sit inside your presence, one demolished, the other drunk. We smile, we weep, tree limbs turning sear, then light green. Any power that comes through us is you. Any wish. What does a rock know of April? It is better to ask the flowery grass, the jasmine, and the redbud branch. I'll read that again. There has never been beauty like yours. Your face, your eyes, your presence. We cannot decide which we love most, your gracefulness or your generosity. I came with many knots in my heart, like the magician's rope. You undid them all at once. I see now the splendor of the student and that of the teacher's art. Love and this body sit inside your presence, one demolished, the other drunk. We smile, we weep, tree limbs turn sear, then light green. Any power that comes through us is you. Any wish. What does a rock know of April? It is better to ask the flowery grass, the jasmine, and the redbud branch.
Which book is it from? Who's the
Oh, it's from the red book.
Thank you.
Which were his poems about Shams. I think my favorite line in this poem is, I came with many knots in my heart, like the magician's rope. You undid them all at once.
Right.
Beautiful. I love that.
It's just so completely absorbed. I mean, you just feel that. There's just nothing there.
I also love this line. What does a rock know of April? It's better to ask the flowery grass, the jasmine and the redbud branch. I'm like, that is
Fantastic.
so, that is just so true.
Yeah. No one knows the pain of stone, its dull dream and slow lust.
Oh, what's that from?
My mentor, Francis Brabazon.
Oh, I'll read the next one. It's called I Pass by the Door. My face and hair age and gray without being apart from the one who whispers in my ear. Do not listen to my eyes, do not look. With our grief shoes tied by happy hands, we keep reaching for big rocks to keep us from sinking. I pass by the door where the source of my loving is, and I see how it is. Face wild, shirt torn, no sense of right or wrong. How can I help? Then begins a moaning for the one already there in the room. I'll read it again. My face and hair age and gray without being apart from the one who whispers in my ear. Do not listen. To my eyes, do not look. With our grief shoes tied by happy hands, we keep reaching for big rocks to keep us from sinking. I pass by the door where the source of my loving is, and I see how it is. Face wild, shirt torn, no sense of right or left. How can I help? Then begins a moaning for the one already there in the room. I know, so good.
That makes you think it's going one direction and then all of a sudden it's not. It's going
Right.
somewhere else.
Yeah,
Yeah, that last line.
Would you
Yeah.
mind reading it again? It's short.
sure. Yeah. My face and hair age and gray with being apart from the one who whispers in my ear, do not listen. To my eyes, do not look. With our grief shoes tied by happy hands, we keep reaching for big rocks to keep us from sinking. I pass by the door where the source of my loving is, and I see how it is. Face wild, shirt torn, no sense of right or left. How can I help? Then begins moaning for the one already there in the room. You know, the thing that Shams was so diligent about teaching Rumi was that, you know, Rumi was a very learned scholar and had very strict rules about what he could and could not do because he was the head of a Sufi monastery, and Shams was very keen on destroying all of that.
Who's Shams?
Shams was the person that Rumi prayed would come to him, a soul friend that could understand him on a soul level.
Shamsi Tabriz.
Shams of Tabriz, yeah. He was
There's a guy that comes to the Artie named Shams Sunder. So I thought it might be the same person.
Oh no.
Oh.
Shams is like Shakespeare to our culture. I mean, even more than that. He, you know, was a very spiritual.
Yeah, he was Rumi's teacher.
Yeah. Shams was a very, very, very important person.
And he really wanted to break down all the structures that Rumi had about right and wrong so that he could kind of get to the heart of, you know, untying the knots in his heart. That was one of the reasons he was killed by Rumi's own family. and his disciples, is they were worried that Rumi's reputation would be ruined by Shams. And they were more interested in his reputation than in who he loved.
Boy, is that theatrical.
So he was gay?
No,
No.
Shams was married to Rumi's daughter.
Mm.
I think it was really more of like a soul connection.
I see.
They may have had sex, who can say, but very possible, but we don't know that.
Mm.
I don't think it was the point of the relationship from, everything
No.
I read about it.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, that would be like putting a rock in a bowl of water. I can't imagine that, they ever had anything like that happening.
There are some people who believe that they were gay. I mean, there are people who will debate that, but I don't think we have enough information to go either way. But
Yeah.
in my opinion, it doesn't matter. Personally, in my opinion, it's not the point of it at all. Like they did, they didn't. It's just not the point of it at all. Because clearly this was a spiritual connection.
Yeah.
I tend to think they didn't, would be my guess.
Surely Shams was a perfect master, and it was a lover-beloved relationship in my education since a teen. That's how I've always thought of it.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, me too.
Mm.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Rainey, were you in Mehrabad the year we did Baba's birthday play about Rumi and Shams? Rainey, that was for you. That was a question for you.
Oh,
Sorry.
you probably.
I wasn't there. What year was that? Because I remember the photos and feeling very sad I wasn't there.
Yeah, it was lovely. God, what year?
What year? Yes. Anyway, I wasn't there.
I'd have to get out all my artwork and dig
Yeah.
through it and see if
Yeah.
I could remember the year.
Yeah, I live in a house full of Rumi, as you know, and Hafez, living with
Yeah.
a translator. And there's also, I think it's one of Bob asked Francis to version a Rumi piece. I think it's 59, yeah. Yeah, I think it was an exaggerated translation of the Men of God, the famous poem of Rumi, Filled Without Meat and so on. And Baba asked Francis to version it and rhyme it, versify it. And it came out quite different. It came out as a tribute to the musts in the end, but I think it's 59, something like that. He saw it as a lover-beloved relationship. Baba, that is.
Yeah. Shall I read another?
Yes, please.
This is a little longer. It's called Joseph. Joseph has come, the handsome one of this age, a victory banner floating over spring flowers. Those of you whose work it is to wake the dead, get up. This is a work day. The lion that hunts lions charges into a meadow. Yesterday and the day before are gone. The coin of now slaps down in your hand with the streets and buildings of this city all saying, the prince is coming. A drumbeat starts. What we hear about the friend is true. The beauty of that peacefulness makes the whole world restless. Spread your robe out to catch what sifts down from the 9th level. You strange exiled birds with clipped wings, now you have 4 full feathered pinions. Your heart closed up in a chest, open. The friend is entering you. You feet, it is time to dance. Do not talk about the old man. He is young again. And do not mention the past. Do you understand? the beloved is here. You mumble, but what excuse can I give the king when the king is making excuses to you? You say, how can I escape his hand when that hand is trying to help you? You saw fire and light came. You expected blood. Wine is being poured. Do not run from your tremendous good fortune. Be silent and do not try to add up what has been given. An unaccountable grace has come to you.
Mm. That's lovely.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
So good.
So Baba.
And so true.
So Baba. So true.
So true.
It's a great reminder. I think all good poetry is a reminder.
It seems to me, because I don't, I've never tried to write poetry aside from songs in the sense of musicality and even rhyming. But it seems to me to write poetry about the truth of spirituality must be not only is it the most refined thing you can think of, but would be the hardest thing to put into words.
I used to write poems in college, but now I'm writing more of these solo shows and plays and things like that.
Yeah, I think you're right, Elaine. I think writing poetry about this is extremely difficult, and that's why there's some fabulous work out there in this field. But you read a lot of poetry that's in the spiritual realms, and it's not very good.
This is hard to. It's a Zen thing.
It is a Zen thing.
It's very Zen, and that's part of what I love about this poetry is that Zen moment.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you catch the butterfly, without a net?
Yeah.
And
I feel it's very important to Baba too, because he had a court poet. This time we have a court poet who he went to a great deal of trouble to have himself self-educated and off the syllabus and be exactly right, and moved him there. And somehow with poetry, you can my mother had a tragic life, but poetry saved her because one older brother was a poet. So she invented a language between us that men couldn't hear. And so just to think in that Zen way, as Elaine is saying, can just bypass. And that's possibly why in poetry, it's the one place, like Rumi is doing here, that you might catch something, that you might be able to express something of the beloved, traverse its pain or its joy or its horror or its whatever. You can put it in there and it belongs only in that lover beloved, suffering and joy at the same time,
Yes.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's very difficult about writing spiritual poetry is that people tend to want to write about concepts and ideas in poetry, and it gets very ungrounded. And Rumi does such a beautiful job of bringing in such beautiful physical images that really take you right into the feeling of it, but also into the physical world. And that is not something most people can do. Here's a good example. The lion that hunts lions charges into a meadow. Yesterday and the day before are gone. The lion that hunts lions charges into a meadow. This is after he just said, to those of you whose work it is to wake the dead, get up. This is a work day. You know, it immediately takes you into the physical world and reminds you that, oh, you're here to do some spiritual work. Well, get up. You know, he said, you who are there here to do spiritual work, get up. But he made it metaphorical, which is so much more strongly a way to insinuate something or make an innuendo about something. And that is for a lot of, you know, spiritual poets, very difficult. The prince is coming, a drumbeat starts. Well, that just tells you, I mean, you know, we're all right there with you in that sentence. You know, royalty has come. Hear the music that's playing to honor him or her is what, of course, he's saying. But instead of saying royalty has come, you know, let's honor them. The prince has come, the drumbeat has started. You are there in that parade, in that street with that royalty, visualizing what he's wearing and the scent of something that he's carrying, you know. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yes. All very good stuff.
And it's one of the things I think that Baba did very well. You know, there's a lot of spiritual teachers who, you know, didn't leave their monasteries, which I think is legitimate, but, you know, Baba was out there building schools and orphanages and really trying to bring that into the physical world, finding mosques and, you know, bringing them in and taking care of them. And that combination of the physical world with the spiritual world to me seems like such a powerful intersection.
Yeah, well, all of those things were, it's not that they were tools, but they were events that helped him get his work in the universe done. The building of the school, you know, and all of those schools, it was so interesting to me that he'd get them going and then he'd change them. He would move the boys up to the hill and he would make the school they had been in, the hut they had been using, into the Hazrat Babajan school for girls. And he would shift things around constantly. And then all of a sudden, when his real work, you know, which was not the schools, it was something else, was done, he dissolved the whole thing and left.
Yeah.
And went to Satara for a while, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just, all of those things were tools to get something else done. And we have no idea what that was.
Right. Diane, if you were trying to say something, you were on mute and we could not hear you. You seemed like you were speaking, but we could not hear anything. So you can just unmute yourself.
Oh, I wasn't. Maybe my mouth.
Oh, no, not you. Diane Ullman, Terry Levine. If you're trying to say something, we cannot hear you.
Diane's working. She might be speaking to someone at work.
Oh, she's working. Okay. I won't worry about it then. Yeah, and of course.
Yeah.
Go
It
ahead.
jogged my memory, Elaine, about building things up and pulling things down.
Yes.
I think it's in the East-West Gathering that every 7 years, he builds something up and everybody's being wonderful and idealistic, and then every 7 years hordes come down from the Northlands and tear it down. Something like that.
Oh, you mean symbolically?
I guess the whole of East-West Gathering is one of the great tricks in the universe. Everything's highly symbolic. Being at their first East-West Gathering with an avatar, hordes come down from the Northlands. That's all I remember. Every 7 years, hordes come down from the Northlands. It's stuck in my young mind. After you've built everything up, you know, to tear it down. And he tore down everything that he built up.
He did, you know, it,
Master at that.
and even in our time, it broke my heart that he demolished, he had allowed Guruprasad to be demolished. because
Yeah,
you
and
know
the belt-
it was so beautiful, and it was so you know, Baba spent so much time there, so many things happened there, and now it's, you know, it's gone. It was wonderful to see, and it was wonderful experience, and it just blew my mind, but it really made that stamp in my mind
Yeah.
that nothing in this world are we to be attached to.
Do you know when they tore it down? What year?
Oh, I'd have to think back really hard, but it was
71, I think, 71, something like that, because we got there in 73 and it was partially
Oh,
built.
really that early. I wouldn't have
I wouldn't have said that early.
Yeah, because we didn't, we as a group were taken everywhere, and I can look it up.
Yeah, I'd have to really work hard at it. It did come early, but I wouldn't have thought
No, it
71.
was definitely that early, because remember Francis wrote a plaque, a piece for it. So it was
For the
definitely,
taking down of it.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah. It's in a frame there in the little cubby that they built in where it was. They
Right.
also put down the Bellevue, which was sort of like in Queensland where Barbara stayed, which was sort of like Raffles or something. And this stupid premier guy pulled it down and built the new Parliament House right where Barbara had stayed in this gorgeous tropical,
Yeah.
beautiful hotel with like wrought iron lace and everything around. This ridiculous peanut farmer premier pulled it down and stuck a skyscraper on it. Which
Well-
since fell down. Its since was so badly built it fell down, which is insult upon injury.
Yeah, that's too bad. Well, you know, Baba doesn't want us to be attached to those beautiful things.
No,
He really doesn't. He didn't want Guruprasad to become a spiritual center in Pune. You know,
There's a gas company in Pune called Guruprasad in Dane. Just to know,
Guruprasad, what were the last two words?
in Dane, Indane.
In Dane.
I don't know what that means, but it's a gas company in Pune.
Guruprasad in Dane.
Guru Prasad is such a lovely word to us, but in actual fact, the Guru's Prasad was when a horse won a race, and the Guru said it would, and the king got all the money, and so he built a palace called Guru's Prasad. But it sounds so gorgeous and sacred.
I'm trying to Google it, but all I'm getting is this gas company.
It would have to be former palace Guru Prasad Pune.
Oh, I have to take this call, so I'll sign up.
All right.
Okay.
I just found it. I just found it, Elaine.
Oh, what is it?
It's the builders. They sleep in the king's city and march in companies with a will and a swing to the day's work. They tear down, oh, it's so symbolic. They tear down slums of unlove and in their place build fair houses, from the tops of which floats the king's flag. The buildings support their limbs and the flags exalt their spirits. Oh, there's a trap, Elaine.
Yeah.
The flags exalt their spirit. They do not know that every 7 years hordes swarm down from the cold northlands, bringing barbaric civilizations and tear them down. By then they've gone on to another area to build up another good place. I knew as a young girl something was stuck in my head about building up and tearing down.
Yeah. Well, of course, this, you know, these places that exist in this world are just, you know, they're like the rest of this world. They're not real. They're only there to get something done on the real level.
Yeah.
So, and that's why Baba doesn't like them to carry on, I guess. I don't know. Still broke my heart at the time.
Yeah. I have a photograph of a sketch of the Bellevue. So, I mean, the young ones call us the furniture worshippers. I
Right.
think I could have been called a building worshipper too. So,
Yes, yes. And here we are, you know, in modern day times, building all new structures there at Maribod. And, you know, it's really amazing to be involved in all that.
you better oracle the book now, Tracey, and just see if Rumi says something about a building being torn down.
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll do a fall and then we'll close out.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, didn't mean to take up too much time with that.
It's okay.
Ditto.
So this is what I opened to. It's called You Shall Not See Me. You are rest for my soul, a surprising joy for my bitterness. Imagination has never imagined what you give to me.
Mm.
The sound of someone whistling in a street or asking questions. If that person brings word of you, those sounds are worth more than all the world's poetry.
Mm.
There is nothing I want but your presence. In friendship, time dissolves. Life is a cup. This connection, pure wine. What else are cups for? I used to have 20,000 different desires. The Unking said once on Sinai, you shall not see me. But even though he said that he was not, I have filled the essence of what he is with my soul. The Christian Trinity, the Zoroastrian light and dark, I absorb them all. Then my body has not noticed, union has begun to see a new way to be. Crown old with grief and longing when someone says to breathe, I am young again.
Wow.
So good.
Beautiful. Wow.
Wow. That's a wowzer.
So good. You're so fortunate to have these great poets in the world.
Yes.
Isn't the breeze the most gorgeous word? The breeze. It's just such
It
a
is,
good,
isn't it?
yeah.
It is. Thank you all for coming tonight and participating. And I don't know what our plan is for next week. I may still be sick. We may just kind of go with what's happening. But anyway, thank you for coming.
Yeah. Are you